One big team podcast. So fired up to get this one going. Going to teach and educate on one of my favorite formulas that's helped me an immense amount. It's helped a lot of students that I've worked with. Before I go into it, I want to practice some of my favorite mental skills for myself and also to demonstrate how simple it is to frame up your experience to channel some more confidence. So this is the first one, gratitude. I want to put my focus on the state of gratitude. I am immensely grateful, so grateful. I woke up this morning, I'm healthy. I got to see my parents, got to communicate with my girlfriend. I'm in here today. I have the opportunity to serve people. I've already communicated with a couple friends via text messages. I had a good breakfast. So many good things in my life right now going on. I'm so grateful for those things. I could as easily focus on the challenges or the scenarios that cause me to be anxious, but I've benefited long enough from this practice of gratitude via communication, via journaling, internal self-talk, external self-talk. So I want to always encourage us to get into a state of gratitude. From that place, we're a lot more grounded, we're a lot more present, a lot more joyful, and we can take better aligned action. So starting off with some gratitude, I already feel even more in the moment. The next one would be optimism, all right, the BPO, some expansive thinking. What's the BPO for this episode? The BPO personally for me is that I go one segment at a time. I'm in a flow. I speak with enthusiasm and clarity, and it reaches millions and millions of people. That would be the BPO. And then for those people to listen to it, to be inspired, to be positively impacted, for them to share it with other people, and for it to show up in their lives for every day for the rest of their lives. That would be a BPO. So now that kind of sets my framework and my goals for this episode. And then another one would be confidence. Okay, your belief in your ability to execute a skill or overcome a challenge. So for me right now, the challenge is to be in the moment, to make sure that I go through this episode, play by play, segment by segment, communicate effectively. All right, do I believe I have the abilities to do this? Yes, absolutely. I've demonstrated before. I'm prepared for this episode. I have many episodes in my past, many conversations, workshops led, conversations with students, talking about what I'm going to teach today. I am prepared, and I've demonstrated these behaviors before. That fires up my confidence. It generates a higher belief in my ability to execute the skill of communication right now with you. So gratitude, BPO, confidence, I'm aligned, I'm ready to go and teach you one of my favorite formulas. And the formula is P equals P minus I. And that stands for performance equals potential minus interferences. All right, so I actually got this from a random guy that I golfed with a couple years ago, and his college lacrosse team, his coach, this was kind of their anchor from a sports psychology standpoint. And he sent me a short article on it, which I can't find on the internet anymore, but incredible formula. So we've taken it at the academy and really have enhanced it and taken a deep dive on it. This formula is so simple, and I really believe that at any point we can go back to it, get some more clarity, get some strategy, and then take better action. So performance, this would be the outcome. This would be the metric. For this podcast, it would be how many people view it. That would be part of the performance. It would also be how many people share it or how it impacts you as the listener. I would say all of those things are related to the performance. The potential, right, equal to the potential. I mean, potentially people could share it and it could reach millions, right? Worst content has gone viral before. So that's the potential. All right, well then why wouldn't that happen? And then it would be because of the interferences. What are the interferences that are going to hold back this episode from reaching millions of people? It could be the lack of social media engagement. It could be people being, unwilling to share the episode. It could be because the episode isn't that high of quality, which I'm going to do my best to make sure that it is. But that would be an example of the formula right there. For you, it could be, as an athlete, as a parent, business owner, whatever that performance metric is, right? What are the things that are interfering you from performing at your full potential? So potential is your capabilities in the present moment, but also over time. So right now, today, if you went to run a mile as fast as you could, what is your body capable of doing right? What would be the interferences holding you back from doing that performance? So with players, very common that they have a great game. They play as close to their potential as possible every 10 games or so. And then the question is, why don't you perform at that level every game? And I believe this formula can help us identify those reasons. We go into the interferences, and I have a huge list of potential interferences that show up for many athletes and people every single day, including myself. So that's the framework. Let's dive into these interferences, because I also believe in today's world, this is the game. This is the challenge. Identifying these distractions, identifying the interferences, and then implementing frameworks, systems, support to overcome them or eliminate them completely. We are in a game of eliminating interferences. So one of the first ones, and I show this list to teams, and I ask them which one affects them the most. And by far, the answer I get is negative self-talk. All right, so this would be defined as these statements of being maybe overly judgmental or critical of yourself or the experience that you are having. And they oftentimes cloud our focus. They pull us out of the moment, and they increase tension, hesitation. And I think we've all been there before when we are having negative self-talk. It's definitely not the state that I think anybody wants to live in consistently. Then the question is, why do we have it? And we could go into the evolutionary psychology of it and the childhood development of all of these things. But going back to something we talk about a lot, the content we consume, the conversations we have, they influence our potential. They influence our interferences. So if you're consuming an immense amount of content that has nothing to do with improving your self-talk, chances are it's going to harm it. All right. If you are not regularly having conversations with people that inspire you, people that can educate you, then you're probably not going to be moving forward in this direction. But the alternative is true. And that is that if you intentionally consume great content from excellent coaches and speakers and authors, and you have conversations with great coaches, great teammates, it can enhance and improve your self-talk. So let's talk about the alternative, the strategy away from negative self-talk. One, you identify it. Yes, that is an interference for me. All right, why is it there? Right, we can make a list there. But then now let's improve it to positive self-talk or instructional self-talk. So when we talk about self-talk at the Academy, we break it down really into three ways. All right, it is a multitude of ways. It can be positive, neutral, or negative. In this example, you were dealing with negative self-talk, so we want to move it to either neutral or positive. It can be internal or external, meaning it's in your own head, or you're saying it out loud to yourself. It can be in first person or third person. And I find for myself and for others that positive and instructional self-talk is the best combination. So instructional is getting technical in what it is that you are trying to improve, and positive has a lifted spirit to it. It can be extra motivating and inspiring and help build confidence. Okay. So how do you improve this? You make it a system. You make it a routine. You practice something like the big three, which is I am, I love, I will. And if you could do that every day, multiple times a day before performance, I believe that it will improve your ability to get to your full potential. So before I sat down and did this podcast, I was in my car and I was having that conversation with myself. I'm going to do my best on this episode. I even said, I'm going to pretend that there's millions of people behind the camera watching and listening as a way to motivate myself, right? I will be in the present moment. So I did a little bit of breathing before I got in here. I love the opportunity to help people. Okay, so I take myself through the big three. I am, I love, I will, puts me more engaged, present, clear, limits the negative self-talk interference. So that is one strategy that you can use there. When would you do it? Well, if you're a tennis player, like one of my students I'm working with now, it would be a part of his pre-match routine. An hour before, he could sit down and start integrating positive self-talk. It could also be a trigger and a response to losing a point. He has a bad serve or whatever it is. He loses a point. He's identifying what is the best form of self-talk for him in that moment. Instructional, motivational, neutral, positive. and then you build it into a system, into a process, and then you do your best to stick to that process. Okay. Another one, an interference, can be stress and anxiety. And stress can come from a lot of things. It can come from our perspective. It can be, unfortunately, enhanced through negative self-talk and being overly judgmental. But it can also come from our environment and the way that we take care of ourselves. Low sleep, poor sleep quality will enhance, unfortunately, the amount of stress that you experience. It will make you more irritable, frustrated, fatigued. And anxiety, which a lot of people consider to be ruminating on future situations, okay, when it comes to a thinking perspective. And I did it the other day. I was going down a train of anxiety. I was thinking about all the things that could go wrong. Next thing you know, my body's flaring up and I can feel in my chest this experience of anxiety. So that is a interference. All right, well, how can we limit stress and anxiety? One of them is going to be with our hydration, with our sleep, with our routines. Another thing, the massive distraction, is the smartphone. Without a doubt, every single person that I talk to admits very early on that their phone is a distraction and their number one interference. And I think most of the time they just perceive it as a time interference, but really it can zap a lot more things. It can really overload the dopamine system in the brain, which then really doesn't want to get you to do the things that you need to do that aren't as exciting as scrolling on social media. It can show you content, if you're not mindful, that does increase stress and anxiety. So the phone, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about it as we go. Another interference could be lack of preparation. So if I came in here and I wasn't feeling overly confident and I didn't believe I was going to be at my potential, part of it could be because I didn't take the time to prepare. And I have this with lots of students. That's one of the most important things that we talk about is where are you at from a preparation standpoint? 95% of the time, when you improve your preparation, it will improve your confidence. It'll get you closer to your potential. So what can you do right now to improve your preparation? It also, though, needs to be paired with accurate self-talk, because I've seen many athletes be prepared for the moment, but they don't manage that inner dialogue. And then that leads to them not performing at their potential. So to go back to that number one interference, negative self-talk, right? I know there's a famous book called The Four Agreements, and the author, Don Miguel Ruiz, talks about the judge, the inner judge. And that is that negative self-talk that's being overly critical and putting us in a lower vibration state. So when we think about lack of preparation, the alternative would be over preparation. And that is going to increase your potential. So right now where I'm at as a speaker, as a podcast host, the more reps that I get, the more practice that I put in, the more podcast hosts that I study, those three things will all improve my ability. It will then raise the ceiling of my potential. And then the new challenge will be, how close can I get to that every single time I go out and perform? Another big one for athletes is pressure and expectations. They unfortunately have never been taught how to deal with those things, whether it's from a physiological standpoint and learning how to relax the body, or to shift their focus on the joy of the game, the gratitude that can be expressed, focusing on small, tangible, actionable goals that are right in front of them. But pressure and expectations is another conversation that I have often with students. They get to a point where their identity is so wrapped up in their outcome, their performance, that it creates a wave of anxiety and stress, and that can be an interference. So how do you overcome that? I would say reframing the experience. All right. So if you look at it as I need to play well, I have to play well. If I don't, these are the things that are going to happen. I can almost guarantee you're not going to perform at your best. So I understand that outcomes are important. And I understand that performance is very, very important. These metrics matter. So for that reason, it's going to benefit you to focus on the moment. It's going to benefit you to relax, to practice positive instructional self-talk, to have very clear goals, to have a very clear process of what it is that you need to do at certain times. So it's not to say that the outcome doesn't matter. It's just to say that by focusing on it and creating more pressure, expectations, anxiety, it's not going to help you. So there needs to be a little bit of reframing, and that usually happens through conversations. Hopefully this one right now, especially for my student athletes, gosh, this one still to this day can impact me, which is poor time management, or as my friend Alan Stein Jr. talks about, energy management. Not being intentional with the way that you spend your time, the way that you live your life, managing your daily habits and your schedule. And oftentimes, classic example, student athlete, they don't get their homework done on time because the phone. They want to do what's more attractive in that moment, which is go on the phone. It's more exciting. I totally resonate. Then an hour goes by. Maybe they haven't eaten, so now their stress and their fatigue is up. A lot of interferences from them doing their best work. And now, because of that poor energy management, not directing our focus at the right time, right place, they have more homework to do. They have to stay up later. They are more irritated about it. They get less sleep if they decide to stay up and sacrifice sleep to get a better grade. And then this cycle continues. So poor time management, poor energy management is a huge interference. And the alternative would be managing some of these distractions and then taking the time to write out your ideal day. Get clear on what time are you most productive to do your work, your schoolwork, your exercise, your meal prep, your journaling, your reading, whatever those tasks and goals are for you. Just get very clear. What's the best time of day for you? And then what would be the number one interference? So for an example, one of my students, he was the one that admitted it. I could have led him to it, but it was pretty clear that the phone is the biggest interference. And then I said, why? And we broke it down. Oh, it leads to this, it leads to that. So I said the best thing that he can do for himself, one of the ways you can improve your potential, limit interferences, is to control your environment, to set your environment up for your own success. One of the most current famous authors in the world right now, James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, he says, your environment is the invisible hand that shapes you. And it is so true. So the strategy that you can use is get the distraction drawer. So the distraction drawer is where this student is now going to put his phone when he gets home. And it's where when he does that, he is affirming to himself, he's building confidence in his ability to do what he says he's going to do, to get present, to get clear, to then go to his process, his checklist, and begin going one by one. And for him, it's important to be as close to his full potential as possible so that he can make his parents proud. He can be proud of himself. He can accomplish the goals that mean the most to him. One Big Team podcast is powered by Mabry Academy and the Confidence Now course. The Confidence Now course was designed to help you transform your mindset and your life and your performance. It is available at mabryacademy.com/confidence now. And it is the quickest way for you to understand this super important mental skill and take your game in life to the next level. So when I think about these interferences and why they come up, some of them come up because of this lack of understanding of what we want isn't always going to be what we like. And this is something that I'm still navigating, and I will probably for the rest of my life. I think it's a part of the human experience. The first thing that I want is the easy way. I want the food that's probably unhealthier. I want to scroll on social media. I want to be on easy street, but I'm not going to like, and I have enough experience knowing I don't like the way that I feel after doing those things. I like the way that I feel when I practice more discipline, when I do the things that I know are best for myself. My energy's better, my attitude's better, I can help people more. It's in alignment with the best version of myself. So that was a conversation that we had. When he gets home from school after 8 hours, you get home from work, you're going to want the easy thing. No doubt about it. That's going to be there. It'll probably always be there. And again, evolutionary psychology would say it's a survival mechanism. You know, we are, as humans, we have the ability to strive. Our potential, I believe our potential is limitless. That's why I love this formula so much. Performance equals potential. Why I believe our potential is limitless. Why don't we perform to our limitless capabilities every time we step into the arena, whatever the arena is for you? And it's because we're meant to survive. And sometimes taking it easy is the quickest way to ensure that we can continue to live on another day. But we most likely, if you're listening to this, have had the experience of, doing the easy thing doesn't always make me feel good. And then it ends up making things harder down the road. It actually creates more interferences. And now I go days, weeks, months, years, not even close to my potential. So strategy there for limiting interferences. If it is the phone, which I'm sure it is, have a distraction drawer. You call it a discipline drawer. You call it anything you want. You put it in there. When you do that, you are enhancing your environment, because if you do your work, your exercise, your journaling, your homework, your business on the other side of the house or the apartment or wherever you are, even as simple as putting the phone in your backpack when you are working at the coffee shop, which I tend to do now, is creating resistance. It's creating space. It is giving you more time to control your first urge of wanting the distraction, right? It gives you more time to realize, you know what? I'm actually going to like not going for that easy choice. So there's a good one there. Another big one is going to be lack of focus. So when we think about focus, we think about where we put our mental attention. And this has always been helpful for me in teaching this to students. We can think of focus as broad and narrow. So broad focus would be taking in all the sights and sounds that are around you. Super important on the sports field, in many different arenas of life. But if we're broad all the time, it's going to be really hard to lock in, channel our energy to get certain things done. Narrow focus, one of the ways that it happens naturally, if you're in the car, you're driving and somebody cuts you off and you got to slam on the brakes, like everything zooms in so quickly. All of your visual and physical sensations are completely focused on slamming on the brakes and steering the car correctly. On the field, it's when you are in the detailed moment of your craft. So broad focus, very big. Narrow focus, just on one thing. So a lot of times athletes have never been taught that, and they don't practice any focus shifting drills. But if you can begin practicing broad focus, take in as much as you can, and then the exercise that's called focal point, picking one small thing in your environment. Right now in the studio, it could be the camera lens. It could be as simple as my thumbnail. It could be the microphone. And you channel all of your mental attention and your visual attention and your sound, the sensation of sound, everything that you have on one thing. You'll feel within 1 or 2 breaths, you're getting a lot more dialed in on that. So if we have never trained our focus, it's going to be a potential interference for us because we're going to be picking up so many things. One of my favorite strategies to train focus is the 5x5, which I've talked about before. And if you haven't heard it, you're in for a treat. All right. So it's 5 deep breaths focused on a long exhale. And as you do that, you're focused on your breath and the sensation of relaxation. So as I exhale, I'm thinking about relaxing the jaw. I'm relaxing my face. I'm relaxing my scalp, right? Those 3 areas for me, we hold a lot of tension in the head. And when I think about it, it calms me down. You do that 5 times. Then you go into 5 things that you can hear, ideally with your eyes closed, so you can really tune into that sensation. You're putting all of your focus simply on the sensation of sound and what is in your environment in the present moment. Is your mind going to wander? Sure. But when you give it a target, a direction, it's much more effective at channeling focus. Then you go into 5 physical sensations, right? 5 things that you can feel, 5 things that you can touch right there in your immediate environment. Okay, so I feel my elbow resting on the chair. I feel the shirt on my skin. I can feel my socks on my feet. All right, when you give all of your attention to those things, again, more grounded in the present moment, a little bit more relaxed, all right, you are managing internal, external interferences. Lastly, the last 2 is you're going to open your eyes, orient yourself to the room. Notice the different colors that you see, the different objects, the shapes that you can see both near and far. And then you can practice the positive instructional self-talk following the I am, I love, I will script. All right. You do those 5 things and do your best effort. I would be shocked if you didn't notice an immediate state change. And if you do it consistently, that state change can turn into your natural trait where you are a more relaxed and mindful and aware person. So I love that drill for enhancing focus. And I love the concept of broad and narrow. That really helps me. Example, when I'm on the golf course, it's very broad focus when I'm walking down the fairway. It's very, very, very narrow focus when I'm standing over the ball. And when I shift appropriately, I play closer to my potential. But if my focus when I'm standing over the ball is extremely broad, I'm thinking about swing technique. I'm thinking about my last shot. I am looking around at different targets that I've never looked at before. Very broad. Of course, it makes sense that the swing isn't going to be as accurate, as consistent as it could be if I was just focused on one thing. Other interferences could be interpersonal conflict. All right, so in your environment, your relationships with family members, partners, coaches, teammates, coworkers, all of it, those can be a big interference. And a lot of times I find that people are not formally educated on conflict resolution, how to navigate these really, really important experiences. And I know that I wasn't formally educated on it. My parents did a great job helping me navigate relationships and how to communicate effectively. But there's a lot there that we can learn. A lot of it has to do with emotional intelligence. But if you can identify, yeah, you know what, my relationship with my coach or my teammates, it's actually the biggest interference for me. And unfortunately, I've had a lot of players say that that's an interference, specifically in regard to their parents, because the parents are putting an immense amount of pressure and expectations on that student athlete. And then they're out on the field and they're not thinking about the moment. They're not focused on having fun. Their self-talk is unfortunately trained by the overly critical, judgmental voice of their parents. And that is unfortunately way more common than it should be. So we all need to do this work, right? So that we can help the people in our room and in our space and navigate these interpersonal conflicts better. All right, we'll go into one more example of what a potential interference could be for you, and that is perfectionism. And I would say perfectionism is just unrealistic standards, expectations of yourself. And I think a lot of people fall into this category, and a lot of people have pride in being a self-proclaimed perfectionist. And when I meet a player who tells me he's a perfectionist, I usually frame it in a positive way. I say, oh, great. You're going to be really successful at whatever it is that you want to do because you have these high standards and expectations for yourself. Awesome. But I'll ask them, how much stress are you experiencing because of it? And do you also think it might be an interference and holding you back? And I've never met someone who tells me they're a perfectionist and say that it's not holding them back. So the opposite of perfectionism for me would be fully embodying a growth mindset, looking at everything as progress, not just focused on perfection. So how do we embody a growth mindset? Well, we have to have the proper beliefs. And one of my favorite beliefs is everything and everyone is my teacher. And when you choose to believe that, it's the quickest way to accelerate a growth mindset, because now you can look at every experience. Well, what is this teaching me? What can I learn from this? Okay, great. You can also do this through simple, quick reflections. One of them would be the well, better, now. All right, what did I do well? How did my strengths show up on the field in life today? Great, write those things down. What do I want to do better? What did I learn from this experience? How is this experience helping me for the next one? Questions, self-reflection, similar to that, very powerful. And then now what am I going to do about those things? How can I implement my strengths more? How can I attack my areas of growth? And, it's really through those exercises and consistent conversations. So I was talking to a student the other day, and he told me how his head coach, this new young head coach, was really good at framing their losses during the season. So he said two things in the huddle to the team. Guys, we're playing for May, meaning we're playing for the playoffs. That's what we're focused on. So we're taking everything we learned and we're playing for a certain time of the year. And then he'd also say statements like, I will bet on us in May, right? If we can learn from this, I bet on us. And that built a lot of confidence in him and his teammates. It gave them a direction to put their attention. They didn't go home sulking about the loss and what didn't happen. They were then focused on how they could grow and improve from it. So The opposite of perfectionism to me would be fully embodying a growth mindset. And again, I think perfectionism has a lot of positive qualities, no doubt about it, high standards, high expectations, but it can also be an interference from you growing, from you expanding your full potential. All right, let's go back to the potential aspect of this formula. Again, the limits of your current capability, the highest level of execution that you are capable of in this present moment. I believe that as the formula suggests, that as you cut out interferences, your potential raises. Okay, so not only can you play at your current potential better by limiting interferences, I believe that it will raise and improve and grow. And other ways to grow your potential. One has got to be embodying a growth mindset. You got to look at everything as it's happening for you. You got to take the lessons learned and then implement them into new action. Constantly in a state of growth, being a seeker of information and inspiration so that you can continue to step forward. I think the other aspect here is preparation, your capabilities, expanding your capabilities by pushing yourself, getting outside of your comfort zone, having courage, right? We define courage as taking action despite being afraid. We've expanded the definition to say taking action despite being afraid or it being uncomfortable, new, or as a lot of kids say, weird, all right? And it's not always going to be fear that comes up when you're trying something new. It could just be, this is uncomfortable. This is new. I've never done this before. I'm in uncharted territories. Taking action in those moments, practicing courage will 100% expand your capabilities. Every time I get in front of the camera, a little bit nervous, a little bit uncomfortable, and I got to take action. And every time I do it, my capabilities expand. And I see this for student athletes in all sports at all ages. So let's get on the journey of expanding our potential by practicing courage, by setting big goals, right? So preparation, growth mindset, and really big goals. I had a student this spring. I said, what's your goal for the spring season? He said, I want to be a contributor on the varsity team. I said, absolutely not. That's not big enough. I won't allow it. Let's go bigger. He said, all right, I want to be a starter. I said, okay, fine. If we made a goal for you to be a starter and we made out a list of all those things, I don't think you're going to reach your full potential. But if we said we want to be all state, all right, that's a big goal. How does it make you feel? He's like, it's a little scary. It's a little intimidating. Perfect. That's the perfect goal in this scenario. Then we created a list of all the things that he would need to do to make that thing happen. For it to be true, what would need to happen? We made the list. He went and executed on it. This student ended up being second team all region. That is a huge accomplishment for anybody. But he knew with clarity when he got the first award, which was first team all district, he goes, Coach, this wouldn't have happened if we didn't set the bigger goal. So it is the classic line of, aim for the stars, land on the moon. That is a way that you can expand your potential, expanding your belief system, what's possible for you. A great way to expand your potential is to ask yourself, what's the BPO? What is the best possible outcome for this podcast, for it to reach millions? I have the belief that that can happen. That's not that crazy for me. What are the interferences that might limit it? I'm going to go attack those. And then what can I do from a preparation standpoint, from a execution standpoint to try to make that happen? If I had an immense list of interferences, it would be harder for me. I have learned through trial and error. There's times in my life where I took incredible care of myself, and there's times where I didn't. I'm in a state right now where that's a priority to me. So because my energy levels are really good, my sleep patterns are really good, my nutrition's really good, I have the energy to go do that. It's not an interference for me, all right? Because I practice mindfulness, relaxation, positive self-talk, I'm in a state of goal getting. Let's go. One play at a time. I'm there for that. I can go and achieve or pursue that goal. I'm off social media. I haven't been on in almost 2 months. I logged in once to clean a couple things off. I got right back off. And that limitation that I put on the biggest interference for me, which was Instagram and my phone, has helped me in every category of my life. Couldn't recommend it enough. You can still consume the podcast, this content, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all good. So expanding our potential is a really, really important thing for us to reflect on. And then we get to the performance, all right? Limiting these interferences, expanding our potential. That's what's going to lead to the outcome that we desire, whether that is this podcast reaching millions of people, whether that is you performing at a certain level in a game, a certain statistical goal, finding the college that's for you, getting the promotion that's for you, having a healthy, well-rounded, balanced family, whatever your performance outcome is, you're going to get there faster in a more joyful state by limiting your interferences and expanding your potential. It's there for all of us. If you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you did, I hope it helps you more than anything. It's so important to me. Please let me know. Subscribe to the show, share it with somebody else. It's becoming my favorite activity to sit in here with the goal of expanding my potential, of limiting more interferences, teaching you all these strategies, having a massive positive impact. Couldn't be more grateful for those that listen and share. Thank you so much. And we're just getting started. We are just getting started. We're attacking the BPO. That's the mindset that the Academy lives in. And we hope that you can join us in some capacity, whether it's through our Confidence Now course, if it is as a student, a parent who needs some extra guidance in their son or daughter's sports experience, a school, organization. We're here to serve. We're here to help build a stronger community. So thankful, so excited. Lots of love. We'll catch you next time.